Hi, Oliver. Thanks for helping my project. Could you say a little bit about yourself?
My name is Sonny Oliver. Um, Born and raised in Houston. Um, let's see, graduated high school in '97, where I departed from Houston and traveled a few places around Oklahoma and Texas over the past 20 so years with my work, and then probably about 5 years ago found myself back here in Houston or Tomball. And let's see, hobbies. Enjoy mountain biking and driving RC cars. And so through the mountain biking organization is how I met Ace, our common friend.
What got you into mountain biking?
I actually just started as a kid and never dropped it. So probably, yeah, I don't know, age 11 or something when my parents got me one. And even though, there was times in my adult career where I didn't have a lot of time for it. I never quit writing altogether though. So literally from 5 years old on, I've been 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 biking and mountain biking.
With the RC car riding, racing, have you ever done like with the camera and like the headset
Uh,
and that type of
the
thing?
first person view, yeah, I have not done that. It looks like a lot of fun. I've done a little bit of drone flying that had a camera in the VR headset, but yeah, it looks like fun. But no, I hadn't done it.
Yeah, I keep thinking that'd be like driving one of those rovers on Mars, except much, much
Yeah,
faster.
yeah, that's right. That's right. And the technology too is more readily available, so the cost to get into it isn't much. So
Yeah. Um, well, talking about space, did you know that NASA is planning to send astronauts back to the moon?
I think I'm hearing that just based on a little bit of what I see from SpaceX headlines and stuff. Yep. Oh, and a recent interview I watched, Elon. He was at this All In Summit, and he talked about that a little bit. So it was a
And
few weeks ago.
you mentioned you were seeing some news about SpaceX. What are some of the things that you've seen recently?
Well, they just were able to land and grab their rocket. I think that was the a first to do that with the rocket and not and be able to reuse it. So that's the most recent.
What do you think about us going back to the moon?
Um, I I look forward to it. I think it's important. I think the technology we discover to get us to the moon and maybe live for some short span or whatever that looks like. But the technology we develop and use to do those things, such as go to the moon and maybe inhabit the moon, mine minerals to the moon and bring it back, whatever it is, that technology trickles down into things we use here on Earth to improve, technology, equipment, and machinery that we have here. So, at least from a technology development perspective, I think it's important.
And would you say that's the primary reason to go explore space is to develop technology that improves life on Earth, or do you think that maybe there's something a little bit more, manifest destiny, like where it's out there and we need to,
Right,
go
right.
forth and develop it?
I it's yeah, I absolutely believe there's more out there. I don't know that if I believe that there's other beings out there. I believe in God and creator of the heavens and the earth. But I really don't know. So would but I don't, and I wouldn't say necessarily it's important to me primarily because of the technology. Again, it's discovery, right? What is There's probably more to learn from the moon, and the technology that gets us there gets us incrementally or however much closer to the next step, which people talk about going to Mars. I have trouble wrapping my head around, a trip to Mars? Like, I don't know a whole lot of stats. Like, you'd have to tell me how long is the trip to Mars projected to be? What's the travel time to get there?
6 months, but you have to wait 2 years for the planets to line up. But you'll be actually in space for 6 months.
Okay, so there's only once every 2 years that you can make the journey to line up right, but it's a 6 month travel. Yeah. So, and once you get to a certain speed, I guess you'll just be able to continue carry that speed to make the journey. You're not going to be burning much fuel other than positioning during the
Uh, that's
trip.
that's right. Pretty much, you're just coasting along. And interestingly, I was at this talk by this guy that's designing a plasma rocket engine that apparently could keep producing thrust for days, weeks, months at a time. You just have to keep feeding
Hmm.
it energy. And he was saying that with this, you would be able to get to Mars in like a week or two. And you would also have
Wow.
gravity because you're constantly going faster and faster and
That's right.
faster.
You're just going to continue to build speed. Yeah.
And then whenever you get halfway, you flip around and you slow down, slow down, slow down, slow down. And you just like whenever you accelerate in a car, you're being pushed in a particular direction. So maybe in addition to being a shorter time, you also get to mitigate some of those effects of being weightless.
Yeah.
So
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I don't see why going back to the moon and even like some small inhabiting. I mean, if we can use the space station and people can live in a space station in orbit, why couldn't you put a space station on the moon? I don't know.
yeah. Now, when you think about the future of humanity, if you think out like 200 years in the future, do you think we have people living their lives off of the earth just like we do on the earth today, like having families and going to coffee shop?
Not the way we do today. I do not. That's right. I definitely think we per person consume a bit of energy through whatever it is, through the way we eat and drink and transportation and even the things we own, right? Through our homes and the things we buy and all that stuff plays into, I would say, what a individual consumes over their life cycle. And yeah, I don't think in the way we consume all our resources today that 200 years from now that would be able to look the same. I don't. So not without, and again, I mean, it's hard to say too. I lean back to technology, right? What they're doing and, in terms of farming and in energy, if the energy landscape changes and all that, that will make an impact. I don't believe we're necessarily on a trajectory of an overpopulation. I don't think that's current statistics show that we're actually on the decline of population, right? So I think it's just really a matter how much energy a person consumes in their lifetime, how we get our individual footprint down. Have to, I would say. I don't think 200 years from now, the resources we have today won't be around in 200 years. I don't believe.
Yeah, it's just amazing to think about how much energy the sun produces and how little of
Mm-hmm.
that actually falls on the earth. You
Mm-hmm.
could imagine having like a sphere that has a circumference of Earth's orbit, and then the cross section of the Earth. And if you look at that ratio, that's the ratio of how much of the sun's energy actually falls on the Earth. And it's like 1 out of 600 billion or something. So
So
there's
it's
like,
highly filtered.
well, there's a lot of energy that's missing the Earth, just going off in other
Oh, I see what
directions.
you're saying, right? Because it's going everywhere, and so that one little beam that's hitting Earth versus what else? Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep,
So
very
if,
true.
if you figure out some way to capture more of that, potentially you can have many multiples of the energy
Right.
that we consume here on Earth. And it's not just us consuming, but that's like the energy between, that powers weather and every living thing and
Hmm.
everything. And It's also, if you think about our material economy, like in nature, trees grow up and then they decay and they become food for other things. And it's like it's constantly reusing the materials over and over again. And you just
Hmm.
have to apply energy. And you could go from very simplistic ecosystems to very complex ecosystems over time. But
Yeah.
it's like us as humanity, we're getting new resources, using them, and then putting them in a form that's unusable to us. And we just sort of have to figure out how to, you know,
Oh, yeah.
kind of bend that supply chain so that what we consume becomes something that can be transformed back into something that's consumed.
Yeah. Something where we're recycling 90% of whatever it is we consume. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we could do that. I mean, there's definitely some materials that are like infinitely recyclable,
Oh,
like
sure.
glass, for example.
Glass. Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
you could break that and reform it, reuse it. Like, whoa.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. And I'm sure there's some plastics that we can continue to reuse, or we make the product and the product itself just has a really long life cycle. It can be not necessarily think of melted down and reformed, but a plastic bottle, or look at our Arctic cups that we carry around, like, that Arctic cup. I don't see why it couldn't be around 50 years from now, the same cup. You know what I mean? So,
Right. Right. And maybe you just get a new skin for it. So you feel like you got a new
yeah,
cup.
yeah, yeah,
Wow, where'd you get the new cup from? Oh, it's the same one I had.
yeah. Back when I was, in my teens.
They're like, where did that dent come from? Oh, that was kindergartner. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, even 100-year look forward. It's yeah, it's hard to wrap my head around um what what a lifestyle would look like then in the families and stuff like that. So
If you could take a trip to space, would you?
yeah, oh yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
how far would you consider going?
Oh, I feel like I just want to do the out and back in, or maybe to the moon. You know, y'all get a good Holiday Inn Express up there at the moon. It's got a good breakfast bar that I can visit. Then yeah, sign me up. I'll take a trip to the moon.
But you don't see yourself like colonizing Mars.
um, no, myself, no, no. I'm not saying it's not doable or obtainable. So don't let my 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 interest in it be the saying it can't happen. Do I have interest? No, and it's simply because of, for me, you know the how far away in my mind that is the tangible. So I just don't think about it. Right? I'm not going, oh man, if I could go to Mars, sign me up. You know, so, I mean, because look, it's going to be like going back to the, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what it. I guess it's not going back to anywhere, but it would be very primitive to me. Very primitive camping, very hard life. So you'd have to want to go for the science and the sake of humanity, and what you can learn for the generation behind you, because the people that go there first, are one, what's the lifespan going to be, and then two, how well is the equipment and tools and resources and knowledge they have there, how well they're going to work once they get there.
You're not alone in that. Gwen Shotwell, who's the president and chief operating officer of SpaceX,
Hmm.
she's like, she doesn't want to be one of the first ones on Mars either. She's like, it's like camping, and she doesn't like camping. She's like, once they get the Holiday Inn there and
Hmm.
get it developed, then she'll be interested in maybe going. But
Yeah, yeah. Well, and let me ask you this: we sent rovers to Mars, right?
uh-huh.
So are there any plans to send bigger rovers and do some more exploring with drones and robots?
Well, I think, the last rover had that drone on it, the helicopter, and that worked out really, really
Oh,
well. Ingenuity. And I think I would imagine that the next like probes we send to Mars might have a few, a significant number of those. Yeah, because I
yeah,
mean, you don't have to worry about getting stuck in a ditch or how do you climb up this mountain. And
right, right.
you could go to all sorts of places without having to worry
Yeah,
about, getting stuck in between.
if it can come back to a landing site and recharge via solar or whatever it is, they can fly around until some crazy electro storm or something, whatever they have there, whatever their their version of a hurricane is or a tornado, you know. But yeah, well, that's cool. That's what gets me excited is the next phase of of whatever that looks like for exploring Mars and getting that info back. So I haven't looked around at it much, or i- in terms of content and photos of what has been collected so far. But I'm sure there's a bit out there. But does
Yeah, quite
NASA
a bit.
have a page, or have a site dedicated to Mars information?
They do. With each of the rovers has like a mission page with like a stream of images and other information that
Oh, okay.
I'll send you some links.
Okay. Perfect.
Right. Well, Oliver, those are pretty much my standard questions. Did you have
Okay.
anything that you wanted to add, or any questions for me?
No, no, no. And unless you care to share, like, I mean, what are you kind of what in a short synopsis? What are you working on? What are you putting together?
So basically, in 2019, NASA announced they would have astronauts on the moon by the end of 2024, and
Oh,
I
okay.
kind of see this decade as being the big transition in terms of space and space travel, where with like the SpaceX launch that you saw,
Mhm.
um, space really becoming affordable and
Mhm.
like a thousand times cheaper than it used to be, and then
Right.
it's kind of like what this is going to do in terms of all the opportunities that open up. So I thought it'd be cool to capture public perception about it as we start of enter into this new phase.
Yeah.
Kind of, I mean, I basically see this as like if we're looking at air travel, the Wright brothers had already done their flights, but we haven't had airports yet, so we're kind of like in that time period.
Yeah, when you say the next phase, get kind of what do you feel like the next phase is? What are you seeing here? It's from an affordability standpoint. So maybe the frequency at which we get to make trips to the moon versus
Well,
in the past.
absolutely. That Starship catch that you had, the plan is to get that to the point where you could relaunch it within an hour. So
Oh, wow.
you could imagine having one of those launched like 10, 12 times a day, and they're planning to manufacture two a week. So over the course of a year, you would have 100 of them, each launching like 10 times a day. That's like 1,000 flights a year.
Right.
And each flight would be cheaper than any rocket we've ever launched before, even
Hmm.
though it's 3 times more powerful than the Saturn V that took us to the moon. Just because it's reusable, you don't have to replace any part of it. You just fill it up, inspect it, do a little repair, and you're good to go.
What do they do? How are they sending the satellites up? Same type of rocket or something much smaller?
Right now, they're using something smaller. It's called a Falcon 9, sends up most of the satellites. And they just reuse the first stage. The second stage gets thrown away. And then there's the shell that covers the satellite at the top. They're
Right.
reusing that to those come back. So, but that second stage, though, manufacturing one of those for each of the flights makes that way more expensive than the
Sure.
Starship is going to be because
Sure.
they'll be able to reuse the second
Well,
stage.
that's what I was just curious. Like you said, okay, so you could send this thing up multiple times a day. What are you sending up multiple times a day? What are we? Because I'm sure even the fuel millions of dollars. What do those trips consist of?
Yeah, so definitely satellite launches. SpaceX has a service called Starlink that
Yep.
is made up of, thousands and thousands of satellites providing high-speed internet.
Right.
The next version of Starlink satellite, apparently it's too big to go on a Falcon 9, so it'd
So they're
be
gonna send up their next gen satellites for Starlink.
that. And then also, NASA has contracted SpaceX to use Starship for the human lander for the moon, so they have a version of that. And
Yep.
then also SpaceX is planning to use it for point-to-point Earth travel as well. So you get like from Houston to Australia in say 30 to 40 minutes.
Oh, all right. Sign me up for that too. I'm sure those tickets will be a little more because again, imagine the fuel it's gonna burn. But hey,
They say they could be profitable at the cost of an equivalent first class airline ticket.
well, I mean, and it could be, it could be that the fuel consumed is the same. You're just burning it over 30 minutes versus a 14 or 16-hour flight. So
And on top of that, that airplane going to one flight a day, here you could do 10, maybe 15 flights
yeah,
a day. So you
yeah,
get, quicker payback on the capital outlay.
yeah. Very true. Very true. Cool. All right.
Well,
Well,
Oliver, thank you again so much. And
you're welcome.
anyway, hopefully we'll cross paths again.
Sounds good. Bye.
Bye.